Hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Magic in Alchemy. I'm Michelle Hawk, and I am so excited to be sharing this with you today. We are delving into some of my favorite. I say that about everything, though, in relation to alchemy. It's all my favorite just because it's all applicable and fascinating and deeply relevant to our journey, not only as mystical practitioners, but also as humans having an earthly experience. So I hope you find it as fun and interesting as I do. We're going to go ahead and get started here with our slides. And if you're on here live, I may or may not be able to see if you're typing into the chat box with any questions. If you have any questions come up while we're going, you can go ahead and try. And if I don't see them, we'll have some Q&A time at the end of our class where I can get to anything if it's coming up. So if I don't get to it in the moment, that's okay. I promise to visit at the end. And if you're tuning in later, you're just happening to watch the recording and you have questions or thoughts or comments, you can comment on the video. I'll have the video posted and I'll circle back with you. Awesome. Let's go ahead and get our slides going. Oopsie. Share. There we go. Okay. Can someone give me a thumbs up that you can see that? Yeah? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, and we're going to present. Here we go. All right, we were talking today about star magic in alchemy, spiritual technology for personal transformation. And really, I do consider everything that we're doing in alchemy and in aspects of astrology to be spiritual technology. This is the origin of so much of our scientific practice that we have now in the modern world. We'll get to that in just a moment. But this isn't just airy fairy woo-woo stuff. So like, please keep in mind, like we're talking about really like, this is what the ancients used for in a very precise way. There's a lot of math involved. As you know, the deeper you get into this, the more math you end up doing. And it's very deliberate and very intentional. So we approach star magic with a lot of appreciation for its specificity. I would love to introduce myself. I know some of you who are on class today, and then there's a whole lot of people coming in who I don't know, which is really great. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome. My name is Michelle Hawk. I've been studying mystical practices for a long time. I started studying and practicing shamanism when I was 15. So a great deal of time, a couple of decades now in that practice. That's one of my primary lineages. I've been studying energetic medicine for almost as long, and alchemy for the last many years. I've been studying alchemical practice, philosophy, and application of the mystical technologies in both the Western Hermetic lineages of alchemy and also Eastern Taoist practice and philosophy. So there's a happy union of these practices. Oh, good. I can see people when they come into the waiting room. Yes, let's let you in. Great. Okay. So there's a lot going on in my studies and lineages, and I translate that into mentorship and teaching for healers, mystics, coaches, and like-hearted seekers. I also work with people who are not practitioners who want these tools of magic for their personal transformation, for their healing, for working with trauma, and then for translating that out into their everyday life. So on the bottom there, you see I have functional spirituality. This is one of the core concepts of all of my teachings, all of my mentorship and practices. If you come in to work with me, from any level as a very deep apprentice, or even just popping in here for a free class, I want what I teach you or the tools I give you to be functional in your life, because it is my firm belief that if you can't translate your spiritual practices into your life, like if you're just sitting on your meditation cushion and it's not helping you be a more effective human, it is not worth your time. So I want these practices to support you in your human experience, support you in your everyday experience, so that you can translate them into the world, because really that's why we're here, is to embrace functional spirituality. So with that, here's what we're going to be talking about today. Star magic in alchemy, I know, is inherently it seems like a little bit of a very esoteric concept, and it is very esoteric, but it's also very concrete and specific, like I was talking about earlier. So today we're going to be talking about alchemy in general, a little bit, just to give you a little bit of background, especially if you're new to alchemy. Again, I talk about alchemy a lot, so some of you may have heard a lot of this before. we'll just talk a little bit to give you some context about where we're going with alchemy. And we're going to learn about one of the core principles of alchemy, which is the doctrine of correspondences, very, very important for how magic works. And we're going to talk about astrology in alchemy, so the concepts to which we orient to astrology within alchemical practice. We'll talk about the Behenian Stars, which are a very particular branch of astrology that honestly not even a lot of astrologers work with. And we're going to look at one of the Behenian stars in depth, and then I'm going to tell you more about the journey of becoming an alchemist. So, hooray, yay, let's get going. Alchemy is science and spiritual practice, which is one of the reasons I love it so, so much. I really deeply love alchemy. And I mean, in case it isn't obvious just how much passion I have for this particular mystery school and this set of practices. It has very ancient origins. There's a lot of mystery shrouded around how and when alchemy actually came into our human consciousness. But there are records, like in ancient Egypt, referencing alchemy, and ancient Babylonian texts, etc. And then making its way into the Western world, making its way into, even more into the Eastern worlds. There's in pop culture consciousness today, we know of alchemy through turning lead into gold, is often what people think of when they think of alchemy. And this ultimately was, sometimes a literal investigation of trying to work with metals and transmute lead or transmute other metals into gold, but ultimately it is the spiritual journey of enlightenment of the practitioner. So alchemy really goes hand in hand between the physical journey, the material journey, and also the consciousness spiritual aspect related to that. So alchemy also, we see, has had an incredible influence on many traditions. Alchemy is very heavily featured, kind of below the surface in Kabbalah, in shamanism, in Taoism, in tarot. There are so many of the mystical traditions that reference alchemy, whether they know it or not, and are very strongly rooted in these mystical practices. But we also see it in science. And this is where, again, I mentioned math earlier, right? So alchemy is the origin of our modern medicine and chemistry. We see even there the same root word, alchemy, chemistry, physics, and psychology. So there's a really strong, especially in Jungian psychology and depth psychology, looking at alchemical origins and this consciousness practice. And then we have alchemy to thank for the periodic table. Again, all those alchemists trying to turn lead into gold ultimately isolated elements and were able to make discovery about the nature of the material world, the nature of matter itself. And then, of course, looking to the stars, measuring, time and space and planets and physics. The laws of physics came from alchemical practice as well. So we have, again, this really beautiful union of science and spirituality. And ultimately, this mystery school treats how transformation actually works. That's what it teaches us, because there's a lot of fluff out there, especially in the neo-spiritual community, especially in the personal development community. And this is part of what I talked about in the last free class, in case you tuned into the last free class about alchemy and the stages of transformation. And I told you what most, quote, transformational practice is missing out there in the world. In case you missed that, you can probably find that class or send me an email and I'll send you the link to that class. But alchemy is that missing key, because it gives us the blueprint for how transformation works. It gives us a map and a very straightforward set of traits to follow for working magic and transformation. Another reason I love alchemy is that it is universally applicable. All of the rules that we are seeing in alchemy, all of the practices and philosophies that we see in this magic can be applied to anything at all. Can be applied to any personal experience or situation or material object. And these spiritual technologies operate on all levels. Alchemy works on the physical level, on the mental, emotional layer, and on the spiritual layer as well. So this is the context within which we're working when we're talking about star magic and alchemy. It is for the purpose of transformation. It is for the purpose of change on all levels. It's for the purpose of changing our physical lives, our human lives, our attitudes, our emotional beliefs, our thought patterns, and our energy bodies. When we're working star magic, it is for this purpose of transformation, healing, and awakening. Yay. So there we go. Okay. So the doctrine of correspondences, let's talk about this a little bit. I mentioned that this is one of the core teachings of alchemical practice. That which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. Now, this might sound a little bit familiar to you because this paragraph that comes from one of the core texts of alchemy teaching, the Emerald Tablet, this little paragraph has been synthesized and co-opted to as above, so below, and used to explain everything from trickle-down economics to to patriarchal religious bullshit, right? And yet as above, so below is inherently oversimplified and misleading. So here, let's look at it. It says that which is below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. So here it's referencing not just as above, so below, it's a feedback relationship. And this is where we start to get into it's a feedback relationship between energy and form. So when we're talking about above and below, there are many different correlations to above and below, one of which that we'll be talking about here in for the purposes of this class is above, the celestial above, the heavens, the stars, the planets, and the below, the earthly plane. Another lens of above and below is consciousness, our ability to discern and to use willpower and to direct energy according to our will and desire, and the below, the material world into which that becomes manifest. So working with the one mind, which isn't referenced in this paragraph, and the one thing, which is the void, which is the primordial matter from which all manifestation and creation takes place. So again, the doctrine of correspondences references a feedback relationship between energy and form. And from this doctrine of correspondences, we get the theory of like supports like, which is where homeopathy comes from. Again, alchemy is the origin of homeopathy. Who knew? But like supports like tells us that there are these suites of traits or these families of energy that we can think about, like these groups of energy that are all related to each other. So for example, certain colors, herbs, foods, stones, personal qualities or emotions, organ systems in the body associated with metals and planets, right? So they're all related to each other. So let's use the example of the planet Mars. Actually, we're getting ahead just here. Let's see. I'm going to jump. So now I'm jumping to that point that says the 7 classical planets are the rulers of the traits. So, so to give the example, according to the doctrine of correspondence, we're going to use the example of the planet Mars. So the planet of Mars in alchemy is associated with the color red, with the metal iron, with the organs and the body parts around blood and the adrenal glands. Is associated with spicy food, is associated with spiny plants. So like hawthorn is a Mars herb. Garlic and peppers are Mars foods. Associated with emotions of assertiveness and drive, and the energetic qualities around protection. So and then also shadow, of course, because they all have their light and their shadow, associated with aggression or unchecked bloodlust or too much heat in the body, people burning out their adrenals through fatigue, through through chronic stress. So those are again, all of these planets have their light and shadow traits, but they all have the traits that are grouped together, right? So below and above, again, for our purposes in working with astrology and alchemy, we're working with a relationship, that feedback relationship between our earthly experience and the heavenly codes or the heavenly happenings, right? And this is not to say that I very much don't buy into the philosophy of the stars tell us who we are, or they tell us what's happening in our lives. There's an informing relationship. Here is here are some tendencies. Here are a blueprint that you are working from in your life, and it's up to you how much you buy into it or not. But here are tendencies, right? Like just the same as, you know, you could look at someone's body type, right? Like Michael Phelps is a really popular example of, like, he has, quote, a swimmer body, but even before he was training to become a swimmer, like, he had the physiological characteristics that supported him to excel in that particular direction, right? So it doesn't mean that someone else who doesn't have that can't be a really successful swimmer, right? It doesn't mean that he had to do that. It meant that he was predisposed to be successful in that direction, right? So we have, when we're working with this above and below, when we're working with the cosmos, we're working with the planets and the stars and the codes astrologically that tell us this direction or this particular set of traits or this particular set of energies is predisposed to show up in your life. You can lean into it and choose it. You can explore the light side or the shadow side of that, or you could, you know, kind of shut it down and walk away from it. But it's up to you, right? But the more you explore what you are predisposed to, and the more you lean into your healthy expression of those traits, the more you're able to collaborate with them and amplify them in the most beneficial way. So every alchemist is an astrologer, but not every astrologer is an alchemist. So there are plenty of astrologers out there who are not working with the aspects around transformation, who are not working with the translation into the below realm, who are just kind of looking at the sky and saying, okay, what does this mean? And doing, loads of analysis about that, but then not really translating it into the process of transformation. But remember, we're working with astrology, or working with star magic in alchemy. So star magic and alchemy is, again, for the purpose of that inner crucible of personal transformation. So we're translating our relationship with the planets and with the stars into the lens of our own awakening and illumination and healing. So we're looking at the planets. We're looking at the 7 classical planets, which refers to the visible planets and the sun and the moon. So sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn are the 7 classical planets that we're working with, not the outer planets. And we have those 7 planets as the rulers of these suites of traits, which we're not going to go into today any more than we already did. That's quite a bit more than than we can possibly cover in this very short class. And we look to the planets in motion, so those 7 planets, which the ancients called the wandering stars, because they appeared to be stars moving around through the sky. So the planets in motion work with cycles and transformation. So those are the planets that we're looking to for kind of personal archetypal constitution. For, again, they all represent our, different organ systems in the body, different attitudes and energies that we might have, or initiations that we might go through as they're moving through the sky and going through this journey through the heavens. Now, the fixed stars are all of the stars that are not planets, right? And so they are the stars that appear not to move. So we have the planets as the wandering stars, and we have the fixed stars as all the other stars. Now, the fixed stars they do move, of course, because everything in space is moving around, but they move a lot more slowly. And it takes 72 years for one of the fixed stars to move 1 degree. So just to give you an idea, like, the ancients, if they're tracking them over multiple generations, many generations could very slowly see a very tiny little progression of movement in these stars. But the planets, of course, especially, the moon moves very quickly. Mercury moves very quickly, right? Like laps the sun multiple times. Like you can notice going out at night, like Jupiter is really visible right now, like very beautifully visible right now. In case you haven't seen it, go out and see Jupiter in the evening sky. And it is noticeably in a different spot, right? So we see this, we have this ability to kind of see what the ancients were tuning into. Now, the planets, again, they're a little more personal, and because they're moving, they're indicating aspects for us around our own journeys, around cycles and transformation. But the stars are more archetypal. They are archetypal keys. They represent initiations. They represent portals, codes, and transmissions, because they don't move, because they don't really change, or because they remain relatively constant over our short little human life experiences. They're sort of the existing beyond us, right? And this is where we're starting to tune into today. with the Behenian stars. So the Behenian stars are fixed stars, and fixed stars, because they don't really move around in the way that we see the planets move, they are these portals into space out of space and time out of time, or space beyond space and time beyond time, where we're tuning into these portal experiences that give us access to that collective consciousness of humanity and the mythopoetic record of humanity throughout human history. So when we're tuning into the fixed stars, and this is true of all fixed stars, not just the Behenian stars, but the Behenian stars are particularly famous. They are the 15 fixed stars that were used and still are used by the original alchemists for the purpose of magic and spellcasting. And the word Behenian, not Bohemian, not the same, but it comes from the Arabic word Bahman, which means root, because that indicated to the alchemists that there was this root of power. It was this very strong foundation of magical potential that they were tuning into by working with the Behenian stars. So they recognized the power of these stars. And the Behenian stars include very famous stars or star clusters. The Pleiades is a star cluster, but Sirius is one of the most famous stars in our collective human history. It's the brightest star that that we can see other than the sun. So it draws a lot of attention. There's a lot of myth attached to it. Same with the Pleiades, as well as some less famous stars, like less popular in collective consciousness. And one of those is what we'll be talking about today. But I want to just emphasize to you that when we're tuning in with star transmissions and tuning in with the energies of these stars, we're accessing that collective consciousness of humanity. We're working with the myths and the attributes and the qualities and the traits and the archetypal frequencies that thousands and thousands of years of human collective have attributed to these stars. So of course they have their own energies. They have their, the light codes that we are receiving with our eyes. When we go look at the stars, we are receiving these light codes because they are actually, they meaning science. We can actually measure light particles and measure the photons coming from these stars. We can measure the electromagnetic effects from the different stars. So for example, Sirius, we are currently downstream from Sirius, and every single day we receive a lot of transmission, like actual electromagnetically measurable transmission from the star Sirius. So that is a very influential star. And yes, again, it is the brightest star in our sky, but you also look in the pan-cultural mythology, there are, societies all over the world have given so much importance to Sirius. Yes, partly because it is the brightest, but also we're receiving so much from this star every single day on Earth. So all of these stars have measurable effects. We can trace them, we can look at them, we can learn about them scientifically, and we can also look to our collective record for the mythos of how we as humanity have related to these stars, and then giving us a little bit of a clue as to what initiations or teachings they might have for us personally in our own personal journey of awakening and transformation. So again, today we're talking about one of the Behenian stars in particular, and this is one of my personal favorites that is called ALGORAB. So ALGORAB is, it's in the constellation Corvus, and Corvus is the raven or the crow, and it's the right wing of the raven. So I'll show you on the next slide. You'll have a look as to what this constellation actually looks like. You cannot currently see this constellation in the sky right now, and I'll tell you why in just a moment, but you can see it in the spring. And ALGORAB has a really distorted reputation, and actually crows and ravens in general, I think, have a very distorted reputation. This star, if you were to go do what I call like newspaper astrology and look up this star, it would probably tell you some crap about the distortion, right? About like the shapeshifter aspect and the trickster and the death and lies. And we can look at, ravens and crows are vilified as harbingers of death and bad omens. And if a raven shows up, it means you're going to die. And there's like the ravens in the Tower of London. Like as long as there's the ravens in the tower, then the monarchy shall stand, or whatever it is, right? And we also have ravens associated with different death and destroyer deities. Looking in fiction, right? Like in fiction stories, portray ravens as like messengers of evil, etc. So that's all like a very unhealthy interpretation of this particular energy, but it does tell us some about where this energy comes from, right? Because again, as we know, in general, magic and underworld practice and mystical practice and esoteric practices have been vilified for a very long time. So here Raven, it is, and and Raven is a symbol of this, and Algorab as the wing of the raven, this the codes and frequencies of this magical star are about magic and synchronicity, divine timing, communication with the divine and with the spirit world, mediumship, clairvoyance, being able to see beyond the ordinary reality. So Algorab is very tied with oracular priest and priestess lineages, omens, psychic perception, intuitive messages, foretelling, right? And so again, that we can see why it's become so distorted. We can see why people associate the star Algorab with this sort of like death and destruction and like evil messages about death, etc., because it's part of that same family of energy that is related to the underworld and related to the power of those, the ability to see through the veil. And so again, this is very seasonally appropriate as we're in October. We're in kind of the season of the witch here, heading into, we're not quite into Scorpio season yet, but there's a lot of this sort of energy of vilifying the darkness. And Algorab is it's one of a few really great examples of this. So Algorab, the star that when we're tuning into this, we're activating our magical intelligence. We're activating our ability to, again, see beyond ordinary reality. We're acting the ability to be really smart about mystical practice, right? We can look at the wisdom of ravens and crows. Corvids are renowned for being wildly intelligent, for using tools, for playing. Like there's play behavior documented in across the corvids, right? For being able to solve problems and solve puzzles and to discern things and to remember faces, right? So all of this that we see in embodied crows and ravens, this is part of Algorab mysteries, right? So the ability to be discerning in our magical practice, the ability to remember and access collective memory, the ability to use our magical tools in an intelligent and insightful way to be more effective. We also have associations with Algorab as an ally, right? As a familiar, and connections with the spirit birds. So since it's in the constellation Corvus, we're tuning into some of that collective record around crow and raven. And so we have ravens and crows sitting on the shoulders of witches and helping them cast their spells. Well, if you're looking to activate that magical intelligence, activate your intuition, activate your connection to the other side, your connection with your familiars, your communication with the spirit world, then Algorab is definitely a star that you want to tune into. We have, as we look to the mythos around corvids, around raven, there's this one story in particular that I really like, that I think is very indicative of Algorab energies. And so I'm going to paraphrase this story because we don't have time for full-on proper storytelling, and I want to leave that zone of genius to someone else. But there's the story around Raven returning the light. So many, many years ago, at the beginning of the world was dark, and Raven at that time used to be white, but no one could see because it was dark. So no one knew that Raven was white. And one day Raven's kind of hopping about, and he comes across a wall, and he's like, oh, I've never felt this before. I don't know what this is. And he's kind of poking around the wall, and he sees a little light shining out from a tiny chink in the wall, like a little gap between the stones. And he's never seen light before, so he has no idea what it is, but he's like, this is great. This is really lovely. And so somehow he figures out how to get into the house, and he realized that there's someone who has stolen the light and is hoarding all the light in a box. And so he tricks his way into the house, and he picks up the light, and it's the light of the sun. And as he's flying out, the sun starts to burn him, and it turns his white feathers black. and he's shaking his head trying to get it not to burn him, and the little flecks fly off and they make the stars, and then finally he throws it up into the sky so that this light can illuminate the world, and that's how we have the sun. So Raven returning the light or bringing light to the world, I see this as very, very indicative of ALGORAB mysteries, where it's the ability to find the light in the darkness and see the light in the darkness, to see where other people can't see, and the service to make that light, make those teachings of the mysteries available to all beings, and our own personal journey of transformation that brings us through, from one phase into another, whether, and the colors white and black, we can leave that alone, right? But looking at transforming from one state into another state, like the marks that our initiations have on us, and then how we are in the world. But all of that in service to the people, right? Like sharing the mysteries with the people. And since ALGORAB is a relatively young star as far as stars go, it's been around, I think, about like 10% as long as Earth. So it's really quite young. This to me is indicative of like, what are some of these new and emergent mystery schools that are coming into our consciousness now? So ALGORAB, this connection with underworld magic and connection with like this new light and emerging the light and sharing the light with the people, connection with the divine, all of this as a young star. What are the codes and the teachings that are ready to be born and ready to be emergent and shared? And how are we, by activating our connection with this messenger star, with this ally familiar star to support our magical intelligence, how are we translating those mysteries into actionable, supportive, functional, spiritual practice here on Earth for the benefit of all beings? I love this star. I really love this star. Okay. So we're going to do I'm going to tell you about a star transmission, and we're going to do a little bit of activation with this. So when we're working with a star transmission, we are linking into the star grid through Sol, our sun. So all of the stars, as just as any network, like the fungal network or a neural network, we have these connection points, and all of the light in the star grids is connected into each other, and the sun being our nearest star and our home star, we are tuning into the star network through Sol. And the sun is conjunct ALGORAB October 6 or 7, which is why we're having this class today, to give you a couple of days to prepare. 6 or 7, depending on your time zone. We are in the most powerful conjunction window within 3 degrees. So anytime within, on the day of or within a day or two of this October 6 or 7, you're in that most powerful conjunction window. This is also why you can't see Corvus in the sky right now, is because it's with the sun. So you can't go out and look at this star right now in this moment, but wait for the spring, and then you'll be able to see this constellation in the night sky. Here I have the constellation Corvus set up, and this is the star ALGORAB with the arrow pointing at it there at the right wing of the raven. So you can, when you're setting up your star transmission, take some time to make your intentions, to maybe write them down or be clear in yourself about like what you would like to activate with the support of this star. What would you like to invite this star in as an ally for, to help you in your own personal transformation and awakening? And then tuning into our correspondences thing. Remember, we talked about the correspondences above and below. We can use some of the correspondences of ALGORAB to help activate and attune us to that energies by inviting in the physical qualities. So the stone associated with ALGORAB is black onyx. You can, there's a lot of crows around, at least in the area where I am. So maybe you find a crow feather, or you have some crow feathers. So you can set up a little altar if you like. The color of ALGORAB is black. So you could, have a black candle, or, even set up just a little black cloth, or, you can sit here with your black onyx and your crow feather if you like. You can activate your chakras with the black onyx, however you want to do it. It's totally up to you. And also, if you don't have any of those things, that's fine. You do not need the physical objects in order to connect with the star and to have a star transmission. So if that's an obstacle for you, just don't bother. That's okay. So I wrote a little invocation for ALGORAB that I'm going to read for us, and we're not going to do our star transmission right now because I want you to go do that on your own. Once you have your intentions, you can do some writing, you can do some reflecting on this. But to give you an idea, again, you will have access to the recording of this, so you can go look at the invocation later if you want to write it down, or if you want to repeat it again for yourself, you can. So for this little practice, we're going to take a few breaths together. We're going to tune into the energies of ALGORAB, and we're going to simply invite the awareness of what ALGORAB, how we are here to collaborate with ALGORAB, or what ALGORAB is here to offer to us as we're entering this portal, as our sun is coming into conjunction with ALGORAB. We are receiving the codes planetarily. We're receiving the codes and activations of this star. So asking, what is it here to activate in you? So I'm going to guide us through a little meditation. I'm going to read this invocation. We're going to take a couple minutes to just be quiet and listen and feel in yourself, and then I'll lead us out of this meditation. So let's go ahead and we're going to take some breaths. We're going to wiggle around in your chair, get comfortable, do a little stretch if you like. Whatever you need to come into a comfortable space of stillness. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and close your eyes or have 1,000-yard gaze, soft gaze, whatever you like. And we're going to take a few breaths to arrive fully in this moment that is now, beginning with the exhale, breathing everything out. And deep breath into the belly. And exhale with a sigh. Again, deep breath into the belly. And exhale with a sigh. 2 more. Deep breath in. And out. 1 more. Continuing to flow with the breath as it washes in and out like waves, carrying you deeper into a space of relaxed receptivity, opening to receive whatever codes, transmissions, messages, energy are wanting to make themselves available to you from ALGORAB. And activating your magical intelligence to collaborate with this powerful ally, this star. It is with so much gratitude that I call upon and invoke the power and the presence of the star ALGORAB. ALGORAB, I open myself to receive your transmissions and codes so that I may attune to your mysteries. Please initiate me into your wisdom of magic, oracular consciousness, magical intelligence, and communication with the divine. I invite you in as my sacred ally to guide me in my own journey of the mysteries, so that I may bring light and magic to manifest in the earth plane for the benefit of all beings. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the blessings. And we'll take a moment to simply be with the energies of ALGORAB and see what comes up for you. Whatever you received, go ahead and offer acknowledgement and gratitude to ALGORAB, knowing that you can return to this space of connection over the next few days as the energies are coming into their peak. You may invite more connection, more transmission from this star. And we're going to go ahead and seal this with 3 pulling down the heavens. So inhale your arms up overhead. And feeling yourself filled with that beautiful light of ALGORAB, the light of this star that you are inviting in as an ally. And exhale, pulling the arms down to pull this light into the layer of the body. Inviting the starlight of ALGORAB, the transmissions of ALGORAB to anchor into the physical body and the cells. Second, inhale up. Once again, filling that chalice that you are with this beautiful star transmission, star energy, and exhale, pulling down the energy of ALGORAB into the heart, mind, into your mental, emotional bodies, so that your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs may be informed by this magical consciousness. And third, inhale up. Filling once again with this beautiful ALGORAB energy, and exhale, pulling it down to settle into the etheric bodies, into the spirit body, the light bodies, activating yourself to the codes of ALGORAB and anchoring them into your consciousness. And go ahead and put your hands on your body, give yourself a little hug, give yourself a little squeeze, and coming back into this moment. Yay, that was lovely. And you can again return to that. I'll share with you one or two more tips about having your star transmission in a very beautiful and effective way. Before we get to that though, and before we close and take Q&A, I want to share with you about becoming an alchemist. So if you enjoyed this class, and if you happen to tune into the last class and you enjoyed that as well, you might be interested in becoming an alchemist, which is the name of a course, as well as the journey of becoming an alchemist. And this course is this awesome course that I'm very, very excited to offer that will help you awaken, embody, and integrate alchemy into your life and into your practice, whether it's your personal or professional practice or both. Within this course, you will awaken your alchemical remembrance. You'll collaborate with powerful cosmic cycles and cosmic allies like what we just did today. You will master the cycle of transformation. You'll transmute alchemy through your body. You'll practice alchemical ceremonies and rituals, again, like the star transmission, and you will integrate alchemy into your life and practice. This 5-module course. It includes 5 alchemy training modules, including mystical teachings, energetic and ritual practices. Again, just like today, it also includes 5 alchemy rituals, including transmissions, journey, and visioning ceremony. So you'll actually be doing magical practice as part of this course. It includes a private online classroom where you'll have access to me, and you'll have a community of like-hearted seekers who are also joining you in this journey. And you get lifetime access to the materials, so you can come back and revisit and review as much or as little as you like. Becoming an alchemist begins next week in 2022. If you happen to be watching this recording at a later date, then go ahead and circle back to my website to see when the next round of this course is. But for right now, we're starting October 13th, and it goes through November 17th, 2022. Since you're in this free class, I wanted to offer you a discount. So for everybody else, normally this tuition is $497 paid in full, or 2 payments of $277. But since you're here, I'm giving you this special $50 discount code that is valid for 48 hours. And there are 2 different codes. They both give you a $50 discount, but I had to make 2 separate codes because one is a pay in full and one is for 2 payments. So Alchemy 50 for pay in full, or Alchemy 22 for 2 payments, but they both give you $50 off. So then that ends up being $447, or 2 payments. Your first is $227 and your second is $277. So yay. I would love to have you join the course if you feel so called. You can do so through my website, michellehawk.com. And then there's the big pink button on there for becoming an alchemist, or you can just go straight to this this website right here, or email me, michelle@joyofenergy.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have through there, or we can just answer questions right now. So here we are. I'll go ahead and make us on our gallery. Awesome. Let's go ahead and look in the chat, and I'll also take, if you've got any questions right now, come on chat, open up. All right. Ultimately, alchemically, yeah, alchemically. Yep, exactly. Yummy. Cool. I don't know what you said yummy about, but that's great. I'm glad. I'm glad that was yummy. Great. Well, thanks everybody. How are you feeling? How was that tuning into ALGORAB energy? What did you love about this? Any questions, any thoughts, comments, excitements that you'd like to share? That was also a lot. PS, like if you're feeling a little bit like, oh my God, she talked so much and I only remember 10% of what she said, like that's fine. The energy was lovely. Great. Salima, I'm glad. Also, if you want to unmute yourself and either share something or ask something. Do you offer a class on the different rulers and traits? So that is part of the, I'm assuming you're asking about the planetary rulers and the different correspondences. That is part of the I Am Alchemy curriculum. So I do, and it's a year-long apprenticeship where we work very heavily with the doctrine of correspondences. We work with different energies that are associated with the different planets, with the, all the organ systems, etc. And we spend a lot of time and energy on that. So yes, I do. And it's called I Am Alchemy. Let's see. Forever grateful. Thank you for bringing this animal back to me. Almost a soul retrieval. Wow. Awesome, Chris. Yay. I'm really glad that you had a powerful experience with that. Beautiful. Thank you. Awesome. Yay. Any other thoughts, questions? Any questions about becoming an alchemist or I Am Alchemy? I Am Alchemy is, just in case you're curious, that's the year-long apprenticeship that starts every spring. So if that's something you're interested in, I can talk with you about it. It's not ready to, or I mean, you wouldn't be able to join it for another few months or so, but it is an option. Can you say a little more about spirit birds? That piqued my interest. Briefly, sure, yeah. So we have, I'm trying to think of like where to come at this from because I could talk about this for a long time. Thank you, Mindy. Awesome. Spirit birds. So when we're working with animal guides, we have different relationships with these different animal guides, and we can have representational guide relationships. We can have embodied animal guide relationships. Birds are particularly associated with messengers of the spirit realm, and spirit birds are, we associate with like the thunderbird, phoenix, quetzalcoatl, etc. So they're these like sort of based in reality, but also like these mythological birds that exist in our pan-cultural record or mythopoetic record that they're like a sort of a cross between like divine and embodied birds that tend to have like connections and relationships with embodied birds, right? So raven is one of these sort of like very closely tied with spirit birds, and I would say like eagles tend to be another one where they're like this sort of crossover of like eagle. It's like it has so much mythological significance and spiritual significance that it's like the closest physical representation that we have to one of these divine guides. And snake would be sort of like a, not a bird, but like, basically our human version of a dragon, or our earthly version of a dragon, for example, right? So like another very heavily mythologically weighted creature. And again, the spirit birds would be the like phoenix, quetzalcoatl. Yeah. Cool. Anything else? No? Awesome. Okay. I think everybody's landing with that. Okay. Thank you. I'm so glad that you were here. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here. If you are new to my work, I talk a lot about alchemy. Yay. Thanks, Nicole. Glad you were here. Um, I talk about a lot about alchemy. I have so much stuff about alchemy and magical practice, as well as how to translate that into our earthly reality and physical practice. So you will be getting an email that has the recording to this class. You'll also, since you signed up for this class, you will be added to my list. If you don't want to be, you can go ahead and remove yourself, but there's a lot of really good stuff on there. Looking forward to the class. Yay, Ren. Thank you. I'm really glad that you are joining for becoming an alchemist. I know some of you are, and you're already signed up. Yay. If you're not already, then go ahead and do it because you'll have that discount and it'll be super fun. For now, I leave you to it to go happily integrate your magical practice and set up your star transmission with ALGORAB. Oh, wait. Oh, the one last thing. So I mentioned connecting to the star grid through soul. So, you can set up your altar, do an invocation, do a meditation, and then also just like go sit in the sun, right? And so you can feel and practice feeling, because we're receiving that sunlight, we're receiving those light codes from our own star, our own sun star. And since the sun is conjunct with ALGORAB on October 6 or 7, right? That's the closest attunement for that star grid. So inviting in yourself to receive those codes from ALGORAB through sunlight, inviting the wisdom of the plants that they translate sunlight into matter. So inviting your own inner photosynthetic process to be receiving those codes and transmissions from ALGORAB and then integrating into the body. I also highly recommend that pulling down the heavens practice that we did to kind of anchor in the energies, maybe doing a little bit of movement practice if you feel called, whether it's intuitive movement or you have a movement practice that you want to do. Because remember, functional spirituality, people, like, this is the name of the game, is applying it in our lives. So landing it in the body, breathing it into the cells, touching your body after you're done that practice to let it sink into the body, sink into your consciousness, so that it's not just hanging around in your upper chakras. We want to breathe it down into an actionable place where we can use it in our human lives. So I hope that helps. I hope you have fun with this, and also feel free to shoot me a message after this and let me know how it goes, or put a comment on the video. I'd love to hear how your star transmissions go. Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. I know I talked a lot. Feel free to circle back if you have any other questions, and I hope to see you in the Becoming an Alchemist course. Bye.